Former Vice President Mike Pence joins us now for our first in-studio guest for the launch of The Hill on NewsNation. Nice to see you. We appreciate you coming in town. You were in Iowa this weekend.
You bet.
And I'm just trying to think, why would anybody be in Iowa in April? Can't imagine.
Iowa's very nice this time of year.
The corn's high.
Coming in. Actually, no, we had a great event, a series of events, actually in Jefferson and in Clive, a gathering of over 1,000 Christian conservatives in Clive, organized by Faith and Freedom Coalition. Very inspiring. Had a number of people there who were running for president. Some of us that were looking at that possibility, but the reception, the enthusiasm that I sensed there was really overwhelming. I think Iowa's ready to once again embrace their role of shaping our national leadership, and I'm confident they're going to. They're going to do their part.
And they will, as first in the nation now, only for the Republicans, most likely, rather than for the Democrats. Speaking of runs for president, the last time we all did this, 2020, it has now been admitted under oath that Secretary Blinken organized a disinformation campaign about the Hunter Biden laptop story. It was a total lie. They knew, the campaign knew it was a lie. And polling indicates that had the Hunter Biden laptop story been allowed to see the light of day and been shared and been reported on as the way it should have been, that could have swung the election. Were you surprised?
Well, I don't, I've been around politics too long to say I was surprised, Leland, but I have to tell you, I think the fact that the Hunter Biden laptop story was suppressed by major arteries of the media and big tech going into the 2020 election was a disgrace. But the fact now that we know that Joe Biden in that presidential debate stood up and cited, as though it was some independent source, 51 former intelligence officials who believed that it had all the earmarks of Russian disinformation, when in fact at that moment the FBI had the laptop. They essentially knew that it was legitimate, and for crying out loud, look, I've got adult kids too, Leland. I mean, how hard would it have been for Joe Biden to pick up the phone and say to Hunter, did you leave your laptop, at,
this is yours? Yeah.
at the pawn shop? And so I honestly think the fact that someone from Joe Biden's campaign actually now has been implicated in calling for this letter, and then Joe Biden as a candidate, then acting as though he just read about it in the paper, it's something we got to get to the bottom of. We got to get real answers to, and I expect the new House majority is going to look into this matter thoroughly, and well, they should. I think Mike Morrell ought to be in. He ought to talk about the genesis of this letter. But I say again, the suppression, not by NewsNation, and congratulations on the Hill.
Thank you.
But the fact that this story was suppressed by big tech and big media in this country was a disgrace.
That's one part. But you have a sitting Secretary of State who was involved in this. As you point out, not illegal. All's fair in love, war, and politics. But you said there should be an investigation. Should the Secretary of State resign? Should he be forced to step aside before we know the truth?
I think he ought to answer questions about his role here.
Okay, I mean, but not resign yet.
Look, but Joe Biden as a candidate for president in the waning days of the campaign, while allies in the media were suppressing this story, and while big tech was literally censoring the story, the fact that he stood up and just referred to this letter as though it had been spontaneously generated by people with significant backgrounds in intelligence. It's the kind of thing that the American people have had enough of in politics. These kind of
Joe Biden's running for president again. It would appear as though he's going to announce tomorrow.
I hope so.
You know better than anybody else what goes into running for the highest office in the land, what goes into being president. You've observed what it takes to do the job, what it takes to get the job. Is Joe Biden up for it?
Well, I think that'll be for the American people to say. But I have to tell you, I know his announcement is imminent tomorrow. I welcome President Joe Biden taking his record to the American people. I mean, the record of the Biden
administration. So he's not too old to be president?
Well, I think the American people could make that decision, Leland. But I want to say to you The record of the Biden administration at home and abroad is a record of failure. Joe Biden has weakened America on the world stage. He's weakened our economy. He's created great hardship for American families with record inflation, a crisis at our border, a crime wave in our cities, a war on energy that's driven up energy prices for working families, and of course that disastrous withdrawal from Afghanistan, I believe, has emboldened the enemies of freedom around the world. And so look, the American people can decide about the age requirements for candidates for office. I'll let them decide that. But I honestly believe that we as Republicans would look forward to taking on the record of the Biden administration and taking our record and our case to the American people.
Part of that record is going to be what happens with the debt ceiling, whether or not House Republicans, a number of whom are your old friends from the Freedom Caucus, decide to raise the debt limit or hold tight.
Right.
Every time there's a government shutdown or a showdown over any of these things, Republicans lose, whether they're in the White House. It happened to you and former President Trump. You guys got blamed. It happens when it's Congress doing it, and it's always blamed on Republicans.
Right.
Is there any way to get out of this debt ceiling mess without either A, acquiescing to the White House, or B, having Republicans blamed?
Well, I think there is, but it all begins with Republican unity. I'll just be clear on that point. Look, we have an obligation to uphold the full faith and credit of American currency. The Constitution requires that. But the fact that Joe Biden has gone 80 days and refused to even have a conversation with Speaker McCarthy is unconscionable, particularly when you look back. I mean, rewind the tape, Leland. It was about a decade ago when he was vice president, when he boasted about how closely he worked with House Republicans to negotiate an agreement to move forward. Now he's sitting behind the desk in the Oval Office saying, I won't even talk about it. So I think at a time when our national debt is the size of our nation's economy, Speaker McCarthy is right to say we're going to make a down payment on fiscal responsibility again, and I hope that Republicans rally around that cause and give him the kind of united support necessary to demand that Joe Biden and the Senate Democrats come to the table.
Yesterday, you said that you were going to tell the truth before the January 6th grand jury. Is there anything that they could ask you that is not already in your book, or that you have said in the interviews that you've given since?
Well, let me first say that I was very pleased that for the first time in history, a federal court recognized that the Constitution's speech and debate protections do apply to the Vice President of the United States. When this subpoena first arrived, I knew that it was unconstitutional at its core. We brought that challenge. We prevailed on that principle, but now the court has outlined what the law requires of in this instance, and I've made it very clear. We'll comply with the law, and we'll tell the truth. But as to your question, I will tell you, I can't imagine what else there is to tell. I mean, the American people lived that day. We saw it unfold in real time, and in my book and in countless interviews. I've told the American people what occurred that day, and I'll be telling the same story when I sit down.
So let me just button this up for a second. You're a lawyer. You know what the laws are probably better than most of the people who were there with you as all these events were unfolding. Is there anything that you could tell the grand jury that either the former president or a member of senior staff that you saw and observed commit a crime?
Well, I just don't know, Leland, if it's criminal to take bad advice from lawyers. And this was an instance, as I wrote about at great length in my memoir, where in the immediate days leading up to January 6th, I saw a cast of characters, lawyers that frankly should never have been allowed on the White House grounds, giving the president counsel that was just simply not grounded in history or the Constitution and the law. So we'll comply with the law. We'll tell our story. But I will tell you, in traveling in Iowa, traveling in Georgia over the weekend,
that's not what people are talking about. That's what we're going to talk about.
Nobody is talking about this.
That's what we're going to talk about
anywhere that I go.
When we come back, Chris Stirewalt joining us for another round with the former vice president. We'll see y'all in a minute.
Dear Mr. Vice President, I would encourage you to run for office this next election cycle to stand for dignified political engagement in this crazy world that we live in.
Little segment, we have Dear Congress on Capitol Hill. We changed it around to say Dear Vice President Greg, somebody or other from Indiana. We don't know if there was a relationship at all, but one of the fun things we're going to do on the show is have some comments from folks here in Washington who are visiting, and then we also get to bring in somebody like Chris Stirewalt, our political editor, for the conversation.
And Mr. Vice President,
hey, Chris.
I know maybe you didn't want to say it to Leland, but if you want to go ahead and announce right now, that's okay. I'm ready for you. This is a safe space, and he won't feel bad about being passed over. That's okay.
I appreciate that.
That's
Chris.
okay. I'm here for you. Okay. So when you were in Iowa, and I know this, I've been in Iowa covering you before. Voters, and the people you were talking to at the Faith and Freedom Coalition, they believe in you. They trust you. They know that you have paid the price politically in your career to stand up for the things that you believe in. And I heard you say something very interesting. You were talking to reporters, and you said you were talking about the question of life, talking about abortion. And you said, I do think, I want to show the full screen here if we can. I do think it's more likely that this issue is resolved at the state level. But I don't agree with the former president who says this is a states-only issue.
Right.
Now, your former boss, after the 2022 election, in which he put some real Lulu candidates out there, and many Republicans said that it was his fault and that he was a drag on the party. He said it was abortion. Am I noticing some contrasting coming in here between you and the former president?
Well, I hope what you're noticing is my consistent commitment to advancing the sanctity of life. It's really been the calling of my wife and I over all the years of our public service. I mean, when we first ran successfully for Congress in the year 2000, Chris, our kids were 5, 6, and 7. And I'll never forget looking at them and saying, we're running for the babies. And we went to Congress, we stood for the right to life, we advanced the cause of life, including adoption reform when I was governor of Indiana. But I couldn't be more proud to have been part of the administration that appointed 3 of the justices that sent Roe versus Wade to the ash heap of history where it belongs. But I will tell you, for me, I think the American people are looking for leadership at the state level and at the federal level that will seize every moment to advance the cause of restoring the sanctity of life to the center of American law. I don't believe, with all due respect to the former president and other voices, I don't believe the Supreme Court decided to simply, send that question back to states. They sent it to the states and the American people. And I think the elected representatives of the American people in our state houses and in the Congress, and ultimately who we elect to be president of the United States, would do well to heed the call of those that want to see us advance the cause of life.
There is no doubt that the project from conservative Republicans over the past 50 years to change the composition of the court and on this issue, driven substantially by this issue, of which you played a significant role. You are even understating the role that you played in all of that over time. However, it's not a political winner, right? We know that that as an issue, and issue polling has its limitations, but as an issue, Republicans are concerned about what's going on. So we look down in Florida. Ron DeSantis signs into law a 6-week ban. This is not something that is broadly popular. What do you say to Republicans who say, if we go where we think is right, where you say is correct, that we're going to pay a political price?
Well, I think defending the unborn first and foremost is more important than politics. I really believe it's the calling of our time. And frankly, Chris, as I said in the immediate aftermath of the Dobbs decision, it may take as long to restore the sanctity of life to the center of American law in every state in this country as it took us to overturn Roe versus Wade. But I believe that restoring the inalienable right to life to American law is that important. That being said, it's hard to argue with Chris about politics, Leland, but I have a very...
I've been tried for a long time. It's never worked.
I have a very different view of this than you. Look, the governor of Georgia, the governor of Ohio signed a heartbeat bill. They both won decisively. In Ohio, by a landslide. In Georgia, Brian Kemp won against the most formidable Democrat candidate in the country. I think when you look race by race, like Zach Nunn, the new congressman from Des Moines, a Democrat district, where they poured on advertising, trying to paint him as the extremist. He did two things that I think are absolutely important. Number one is he stood without apology for the sanctity of life. He stated his position with principle and compassion. And number two, he also articulated the fact that Democrats are the extremists on the issue of abortion. Democrats today in Washington, from Joe Biden on down, believe in abortion on demand, taxpayer-funded abortion on demand up to the moment of birth. That's maybe where 10% of the American public is today. I really believe if we meet this moment with principle and compassion, and you look at races around the country, men and women that did that did well in 2022, and I believe we can lead on it and win in 2024 if we stand for life.
So is that something that the coastal elites, that the bubbles in California and New York are missing? We like to say we're news for all America at NewsNation. Is abortion one of the issues, and give us a couple of others, that the bubbles are missing?
Yeah, I really believe that. Look, I believe this is a nation that cherishes the protection of the most vulnerable, the aged, the infirm, the disabled. And I believe on balance, this is a pro-life nation, and the American people want to see leadership in that. And I do think that, not NewsNation, but in the major arteries of the media, there's the assumption that this is a political loser. And I'm not talking about Chris's reflections today. I'm talking about there's just this kind of monolithic conclusion. But I'm telling you, when you look around the country in 2022, what I saw, and I was in 35 states campaigning for Republican candidates over the last 2 years, where men and women squared their shoulders, stated their position, expressed compassion for women in crisis pregnancies, generosity for newborns as much as for the unborn, they did well. Where Republicans shied away from it, allowed themselves to be defined, did not call out the Democrats for their extremism, they failed. So I think it is a disconnect. And I also believe this issue of the national debt is an issue that is the American people are catching on. I think they see this record inflation around the country and understand that this gusher of spending and debt in Washington, D.C. is driving that. And I think they're looking for leadership in Washington, D.C. that'll confront the debt crisis.
When you would like to tell the American people that you are that man in 2024, you're welcome back anytime.
Right.
It's good to see you, sir.
Open.
The seat's open. Thank you for being here. Welcome to the program. It's good to see you. Mr. Vice President, thank you. Our panel when we come back. Thanks for watching. Go to newsnationnow.com to find NewsNation on your television provider. And don't forget to subscribe. Click the red button to get more of NewsNation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.